All right, welcome everybody. I guess sadly, all good things have to come to an end. So we're gonna go over the last chapter of Hilchot De'ot. I think it's chapter 7. So it's the final boss of character traits and personal development that we'll be going over today. Then we'll have to decide what we want to move on to next week. So share screen. We were watching scary movies here before the recording, so we can move on to Chabad.org. This out of here. Hilchot De'ot. Looking for, I think it's chapter 7. Yeah. Okay. I am clicking and nothing's happening. Let's go to 6. See if that one. The wheel is spinning. I looked at this, I think last week after last week's class, I looked at this and I haven't looked at it since. So I don't remember exactly what I found in it, but I put some bookmarks in Sefer HaMitzvot and in the Tanakh itself. So there's some interesting things in here that I found last week when I reviewed this. Oh, this is on 6. No, there's 7. Okay, there we go. All right. Anybody that would like to, I think we have 8 halachot. Yeah, 8 of them today. So anybody that would like to read, by all means, please volunteer. Don't everybody start at once now. Moshe, can you read?
I can read.
Okay, thank you.
Um, See, this is really small. It's on my phone, so
If you tell me how to zoom in on my laptop, I can do it. I know there's a way to do it, but I don't know how. I'm not tech savvy.
I don't know how the hell to do that. I
A
don't
plus sign or click and then scroll on the mouse. I don't remember how I did it.
I don't know, but I can see it. Okay. 1, a person who gathers gossip about a colleague violates a prohibition as Leviticus 19:16 states. Do not go around gossiping among your people. Even though one who violates this transgression is not liable for lashes, it is a severe sin and can cause the death of many Jews. Therefore, the warning, do not stand still over your fellow man's blood, is placed next to it in the Torah. See what happened because of Doeg the Edomite. Who is a gossiper? One who gathers information and then goes from
Oh,
person.
hold on, hold
Okay.
on. Just the first one because I wanted to go over a couple things here. So we're speaking about lashon hara here. I want to go over some vocabulary. So the term gossip is called rekilut, one who goes around spreading gossip. And it's interesting in the Hebrew. You know, the word regel is like legs. Um, so like the Shalosh Regalim, they're like the 3 walking holidays, the 3 holidays that you travel to Jerusalem for.
Right.
Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot. So regel, like legs, that's how it means, like regalim, three walking. So this is where rechilut comes from, one who goes around spreading gossip or collecting them. So that's rechilut, gossip. Often what you hear people saying is lashon hara. So lashon is like the language, hara, the negative, the bad. So lashon hara is like negative speech that is true. So you can kind of use this if you're ever, if you're saying something and somebody tries to shut you down and say you're speaking lashon hara. Okay, well you're admitting that what I'm saying is true. It's negative. Yes, it sounds bad, but it's not false. What I'm saying is 100% true. So that's lashon hara, negative speech that is true. Now, motzi shemra is slander, negative speech that is false. So if you're lying about somebody, you're accusing them of something that's not true, that's motzi shemra. Shem is like the name, Ra is like evil. So you're bringing out a bad name about this person that you're saying this about. So we have gossip, rechilut. We have lashon hara, negative speech that is true. Then we have motzi shemra, negative speech that is false or slander. And then we have sinat hina, baseless hatred. So baseless, as if the foundation for this hatred has no base. It's made up. It's not true. There's a false. It's a false, premise. What you're saying about this person has no basis. Okay, so it sort of makes a difference when you're in these conversations about, but today people that don't know the difference, they're like, well, that sounds bad. It must be lashon hara. Well, lashon hara, negative speech that is true, is not always prohibited. You
Thank you.
are you are allowed to say negative things about people. If you've been ripped off, if you know this person is charging you money for tzitzit and they're not kosher, you know, what are you gonna do? Be like, if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I found this guy. He's selling talitot, with tzitzit and kippot and all this stuff. It's really cheap. I'm gonna buy some." It's like a Christian, selling non-kosher things to a Jew. You're not gonna tell him not to go there because it's negative speech. It's true. You have to tell this guy, listen, don't get ripped off. You have to warn him. So we're learning Rambam here, Mishnah Torah. So he defines the exemptions from speaking lashon hara. It doesn't qualify as lashon hara if it's been spoken about publicly already, and we're going to see Rambam defines publicly as it's already been spoken about in front of three people. Because if these three people already know about it, they're going to do the same thing that you just did. You told those three, they're going to tell somebody, so it's going to be repeated. So it's already public knowledge. It's not like we're discussing a secret that it's me and you. We're the only two people that know about it. If it's been spoken about in front of three people, it's already public knowledge, according to Rambam. The Chafetz Haim, he's the one that wrote the Mishnah Brura. Like we have the Mishnah Torah that we're big fans of. Later, we have the Shulchan Aruch. The more recent one is the Mishnah Brura. That was compiled by the Chafetz Haim. He also wrote, I don't see myself on the screen, so I don't know if you can see what I'm holding up, but he also wrote this book, The Concise Book of Mitzvot, the Torah commandments that are applicable today. Since we don't live in the land, we don't have a temple, we can't do sacrifices. It's the small book of mitzvot that are actually applicable today. But the Chafetz Haim, he wrote a lot on lashon hara. He wrote a whole book about it. So he agrees with Rambam. It doesn't count as lashon hara if it's been spoken about publicly already. But when the Chafetz Haim says publicly, he doesn't mean three people like Rambam means. He means 10 people. So if it's been spoken about in front of 10 people, even according to the Chafetz Haim, you're not prevented from speaking about it because it doesn't qualify as lashon hara. So today, anything that you see in a WhatsApp group, Facebook group, Messenger, you already got 10 people in that group that have already seen the message, the TikTok video. It's already considered public knowledge, even by the Chafetz Haim standards. So the Rambam says it doesn't count as lashon hara if it's been spoken about publicly in front of three people, and if you are doing it without malice, the intention counts. So if it's been spoken about in front of three people without malice, it's not lashon hara, according to Rambam. The Chafetz Haim says if it's been spoken about publicly, he means in front of 10 people. If it's not being spoken with malice, he agrees with Rambam on that. But then he adds another metric. If you're going to do it, you have to also offer a solution to what you're saying. So if you're saying something negative and it's true, we just had a discussion about something um, before we started the recording. According to the higher standard, the Hafetz Haim, it's already been spoken about publicly. I'm not speaking on this topic with malice. I have no bad intention. I'm actually trying to solve the problem, and I'm offering a solution. Let's do it this way. Or I'll change my position. I'll abandon my argument and I'll join you on your side of the debate. Just give me a reason. The negative things that I said as a result of this situation, give me a benefit so that it offsets. Then I can say, yes, it's very unfortunate that we're doing this, but we have to do it. And here's the reason why. This is the benefit that we're getting that outweighs the negative. So if it's been spoken about publicly, you're not speaking with malice, and you offer a solution to the topic that you're talking about, you can't be accused of you're speaking lashon hara, you're killing three people. You, the person you're speaking about, the one that's listening, it's just a tactic people use to shut you down. So if it's spoken about publicly, you're not speaking with malice. You offer a solution. You're allowed to say negative things that are true. But that's lashon hara. So rechilut is gossip, lashon hara, negative speech that is true. That's motzi shemra, slander, and sinatinam is baseless hatred. That's the result of this sometimes. Okay. Any questions on
Can
that?
yeah, yeah, Rabbi. So can say that last one again. I got two things. Can you say that last one on baseless hatred? Say that again, slower.
Sinat hinam. Think like
See
S
not, you
I
know.
N A T, and then hinam, Hinam, I guess, in English.
He not, he not. Okay. And okay, so what category would, let's say, for instance, you're having a conversation with somebody and you're just like, you just didn't particularly care for them for whatever reason, and you're talking to your friend the next day and you're like, I just don't think I like them, or I don't, I'm not vibing on them, or I didn't agree with where does that fall, or is that something totally different?
So that happens quite a bit, actually. There's another rabbi who's doing good things. He's helping people convert, so I'm very happy that he's doing that. But we just we don't vibe, we don't gel. You meet some people and there's a cadence with the conversation. One talks to then the other, and then you meet some people and it's just like you're always interrupted, and it just doesn't work well, and you know you just don't get along. And so I don't associate with that individual anymore. I'm not saying anything negative about him. I'm not saying he's violating halakha, he's teaching something that's incorrect. I'm not saying anything about his appearance, whatever. So I just I don't associate with him. But he's doing good things. There are people that love him. They continue to learn from him, and I think that's great. But that doesn't mean we have to be partners. Just because I see somebody wearing a kippah doesn't mean, hey, we're obligated to be buddies. Because we're both religious. No, I mean I don't have to say anything negative about him. I don't have to change his behavior. I don't have to wean people away from. I don't have to do anything. It doesn't have to be a negative experience. There's other people. There's another individual that another rabbi that I used to associate with, and I don't anymore. I don't actually want anything to do with him anymore. But I'm not gonna say anything bad about him. I'm not gonna spread a bad name. I'm not gonna tell you anything about him that's 100% true because it sounds very negative. That would be lashon hara. So that's where that would fit. Doesn't mean I have to surround myself with them. Doesn't mean I have to put myself in a situation where now I'm around people where I'm just not finding value. It's not benefiting me to be there. So that's how you avoid that. Is someone you don't vibe with, I think is how you describe it. You don't vibe. You don't have to speak lashon hara about them. You don't have to create negative feelings for other people. You don't have to gossip about them. There's sometimes people bring up people's names. I just pretend like I don't even know. I listen to what they're saying and then I move on with the conversation. So, we're not causing anything negative to happen. I think that's the proper path. Does that answer your question? If not, let me know and I'll,
Yeah,
I'll
no, it did. Thank you, Rabbi. I appreciate that. And I'm sorry, say one more time that word. Sinot Hanel.
see not
See not.
Think like Mount Sinai, but you're adding
Okay.
like an ot at the end. See not.
See not. I know. Okay. Thank you.
Or see not. Let me not see. Let me see
Oh,
not
that's good.
hatred. I don't want to
I
see it.
like it.
You hate this guy. That's between you and him. I don't want to know about it. I said
I
this
love it.
that one time I got on TikTok and Asher was talking with Rabbi Moshe, and people were accusing him of things. And I said, you know what? If you don't have evidence of this, you shouldn't be repeating the accusation. See not this hatred. I don't want to see it. If you have evidence that you're warning somebody, he's been credibly accused, and here's the evidence, okay, then maybe people need to be, aware so they're not putting themselves in a situation where harm could come to them. But if you have no evidence of this accusation, all you did is you heard somebody say that they heard somebody said something negative, you should not be repeating this.
Amen.
That's you're not warning anybody. You are spreading gossip and
Yep.
potentially slander if there's no evidence. So the result is
Yeah.
see not, faceless hatred.
So yeah. So then I guess that goes back, circles back around to what I asked initially. So if it's your opinion, you're like, we're just not vibing. It's your opinion, and
Right?
then everything's been proved. Then you're just spreading baseless hatred. Okay. Thank you.
Correct. Now, and as we go through this chapter, we're gonna see the consequences of these types of things. But the very next halacha, halacha 2, um, oh no, actually, it's this one. The first halacha, I skipped right over it. Right here. Okay. Even though one who violates this transgression is not liable for lashes. That's what I wanted to tell you about. Why not? If we're doing something wrong, why aren't we given lashes? We talked about it last week. Does anybody remember why?
Oh, because there's no action. It's just
Correct.
words and no action.
100% correct. So, like what Salah just said, I don't like this person. I have negative feelings about this person. Do I get lashes? No. You don't get punished for thought crimes. You have to do an action, a deed, in order to get punished for it. So lashes are not um, given for this because it requires a deed. Your speech saying something about this guy is not the same as an action doing something. So it's a severe sin. The Torah is warning about it. There could be punishment from heaven. You might have to answer to Hashem for why you're doing this, but that's between you and Hashem. Legally, there's not a halakhic punishment like this, but there's lots of things. If you don't clean your house for Pesach, you are correct. You are cut off. This is between you and Hashem. This is not something that, well, you're not Jewish anymore, you're cut off, so Shabbat doesn't apply to you. No, there's punishments for things that we as humans cannot administer. That does not exempt you from your relationship with Hashem, whatever how he wants to handle it. But very good. Glad you guys learned that. All right, number 2. Who is the gossiper? Anybody would like to read?
Can you hear me, Rabbi?
Yeah, loud and clear.
Who is a gossiper? One who gathers information and then goes from person to person, saying, "This is what so and so said. This is what I heard about so and so." Even if the statements are true, they bring about the destruction of the world. There is a much more serious sin than gossip, which is also included in this prohibition, lashon hara, i.e., relating deprecating facts about a colleague, even if they are true. Lashon hara does not refer to the invention of lies. That is referred to as defamation of character. Rather, one who speaks lashon hara is someone who sits and relates, "This is what so and so has done. His parents were such and such. This is what I have heard about him," telling uncomplimentary things. Concerning this transgression, the verse Psalms 12:4 states, "May God cut off all guileful lips, the tongues which speak proud things."
All right, so the only one I wanted to point out is here. And sometimes these numbers do not match what I'm reading in my physical copy. Sometimes this will say 10 right here, but I'll have 12. So I really like to go with the physical copy. But here, so far, it matches. So I'll pull this up. So see if it says what I'm reading in the book. For this reason, we have left the term lashon hara in Hebrew without translating. Often it is translated as slander, which is incorrect. Slander is motzi shemra, but you'll hear people translate it as slander. However, slander by definition involves the invention of false information. That's why I say lashon hara is negative speech, which is true. And you can use that in a debate. Someone says, you're speaking lashon hara. Well, so you admit that what I just said is true. You're not saying I'm making up anything. You're admitting it's negative speech and you don't like it, but what I'm saying is completely true. You still need to do it without malice, all of that. Thus, we see the uniqueness of the ethical approach required by the Torah. Even though everything one says is true, relating such information is prohibited. But there are exemptions. If it's been spoken about publicly, you're doing so without malice. You're providing a rectification for the problem that you're complaining about. You're warning somebody to prevent them from going into a trap. You see them on a path that's going to result in harm. You're trying to get them off of that path to protect them. 100% allowed. So just because something is lashon hara does not necessarily mean you can't speak it. It's all about context. We're going to continue to see that as we go forward. All right. Let's see if I can get number 3 all on the screen here. There we go. Number 3, anybody?
Our sages said there are 3 sins for which retribution is exacted from a person in this world, and because of which he is nonetheless denied a portion in the world to come: idol worship, forbidden sexual relations, and murder. The Lashon Hara is equivalent to all of them. Our sages also said anyone who speaks Lashon Hara is like one who denies God, as implied by Psalms 12:5. Those who said, with our tongues we will prevail, our lips are our own, who is Lord over us. In addition, they said, Lashon Hara kills 3 people: the one who speaks it, the one who listens to it, and the one about whom it is spoken. The one who listens to it suffers more than the one who speaks it.
Okay.
Why is that, Rabbi?
Why is what?
Why is the one who listens to it worse off than the one who spoke it?
Um,
The one who listens to it suffers more than the one who speaks it.
yeah, a person who listens to lashon hara is worse than the one who recites it. Let's look at 21 here. So in Hilchot Sanhedrin, the Rambam writes that a person who listens to lashon hara also violates a Torah commandment. However, look at our commentary. Pesachim 118 states a person who listens to lashon hara is worse than one who recites it. So there's a Talmudic source for it, but the reason why, who knows? Maybe because you have a choice. You could say, I don't want to listen to this. I don't want to hear it. I want to separate myself from this community who's spreading it and surround myself with better people who don't do those types of things. Maybe because you're listening to it instead of saying, hey, is this appropriate? Do you have evidence for this? It doesn't mean you're going to be able to stop them from spreading it, but you do have the ability to speak up and say, hey, you now have a choice. Continue on your path or take the rebuke. Say, you don't have to do that. You don't have to be spreading this. So, I mean, it's something you should not be participating in. How do
I
they
think
how do they determine which one is worse? Your guess is as good as mine.
I think also too, I guess in connection with that, just to add to that a little deeper, I guess maybe from a psychological standpoint, if you're choosing that, clearly, that's not a good thing. But I think sometimes when we hear things about people that we didn't know, we're kind of allowing a person to shape a thought or opinion or direction of someone when we haven't judged them on their own merit, and considering Hashem, shows us mercy and judges us based on clearly a different standards and continues to love and nurture us. Who are we to subscribe to what another person's opinion, and by choosing to listen that continue to let that shape, it could be hurtful. It could, it could create a ripple effect truly. So I could see where
Yeah.
it's more shocking. That's just an opinion.
Yeah, there's rabbis out there that are slandering other rabbis. It's not just Asher. There's other rabbis that there's tons of video of people slandering. It's like, why? Where's the evidence? So I guess by listening to it, you're now one of the crowd that's helping it spread. All right, so there's a couple of things I wanted to point out in here. The Tosefta and Peah 1-2. See, there's also an allusion to this concept in the verse. May God cut off all guileful lips, the tongues which speak proud things, quoted above. In Hilchot Teshuvah 8:5, the Rambam defines being cut off as being denied a portion in the world to come. That word is karet. If you don't clean your house for Pesach, you are karet. You are cut off from your people. This is Rambam is saying it's the same thing. You're cut off if you're engaging in this type of thing. Strong language. Okay, number 17. I think the numbers are matching up with mine. Yeah, the Chafetz who we just talked about. He wrote a lot on Lashon Hara. I guess that book is called Shimrat HaLashon. Explains the concept as follows. Torah study surpasses all other mitzvot. Why? Because it involves speech and thought, in contrast to other mitzvot, which only involve our actions. If you put on tzitzit, that's an action. You put on tefillin, that's an action. But speech is not just action, it's also thought. Conversely, Lashon Hara involves using these higher faculties for undesirable purposes. It is considered more severe than other sins that involve deed. That could be the reason why listening to it is worse. There's not a deed involved, but you're still participating in it. Number 19. Okay. Rabbeinu Yonah explains that Lashon Hara is judged so severely because such capricious behavior shows that the person is not conscious of God's presence. The Maharal explains a spiritual dimension of this concept. God created the world with speech. Let there be light, whatnot. Therefore, one who uses his quality of speech against God's will is denying God's creative power. So today we live in a society where everything's recorded. Every place where you're at in public, there's a surveillance camera recording you. Even your phone, like it or not, it's listening to what you say. That's how it gives you ads for things you were talking about a few minutes before. I even saw a video where somebody took their iPhone and they shut the lights off, and they had like an infrared camera, and they showed your phone every 10 or 15 seconds. It's like taking a picture of you. It knows what you're doing. It knows the background, what the room that you're in looks like. So, now if you want to commit a crime, the NSA, all these agencies, because of this, now you can say, oh, well, they need a warrant to access this information. A FISA warrant, the judge is for national security. The judge is going to rubber stamp it. If they want to see everything you've ever done on your phone, if they want to get into your phone and look at what your camera listened to or took pictures of that you didn't even know was doing it, they can do it. Now, tactically, they know the layout of your house because your phone's been in your house. They don't do that to most of us. They don't have the manpower. But if they ever had a reason to and wanted to, they can get this type of information. If you really wanted to commit a crime, you'd have to leave your phone somewhere. You'd have to travel on foot. I mean, there's license plate readers on cameras. You can't escape the surveillance. If you somehow found a way, Hashem has more access than that. If you're in a room by yourself with no cameras, no nothing, he still knows your thoughts and what you're saying. But today's society has kind of started training us to be aware that, everything you say and do is always being recorded. Somebody will have access to it. But the source, if you want, is this one. Okay. This one right here is the Babylonian Talmud. It doesn't have the exact section, but it's this section. And the Jerusalem Talmud is Peah 1:1. So this is said the severity of this crime, Lashon Hara, is in both Talmuds, Babylonian Talmud and the Yerushalmi. Both communities agreed. The Mishnah is the rulings of the Tanaim, the Sanhedrin. The Gemara is the commentary to the Mishnah. The Babylonian Talmud is the Babylonian commentary to the Mishnah. The Yerushalmi is the the Israeli commentary to the Mishnah. It wasn't actually written in Jerusalem. They moved over to Yavna, but they call it the Yerushalmi. To know this was the Israeli community commentating on the Mishnah. The Babylonian, both Jews were in Babylon. That was their commentary to the Mishnah. So both communities, they agreed on this, the severity of Lashon Hara. And that's where they say it kills three people: the one who speaks it, the one who listens to it, the one about whom it's being spoken. So we have a long history of saying this is a very serious crime. Okay. Number 4, anybody?
I can read.
Yeah, by all means, everybody just jump in. You don't have to
Okay.
be called on.
There are certain matters which are considered the tinge of Lashon Hara. What is implied? For example, a person says, "Who will tell so-and-so to continue acting as he does now?" Or, "Do not talk about so-and-so. I do not want to say what happened," or the like. Similarly, it is considered the tinge of Lashon Hara when someone speaks favorably about a colleague in the presence of his enemies, for this will surely prompt them to speak disparagingly about him. In this regard, King Solomon said in Proverbs 27:14, "One who greets his colleague early in the morning in a loud voice curses him, for his positive act will bring him negative repercussions." Similarly, to be condemned is a person who relates Lashon Hara in frivolity and jest, as if he were not speaking with hatred. This was also mentioned by Solomon in his wisdom in Proverbs 26:18 and 19. As a madman who throws firebrands, arrows, and death and says, "I am only joking." Also to be condemned is someone who speaks Lashon Hara about a colleague slyly, pretending to be innocently telling a... Hold on. I'm sorry.
All right. I just scrolled if you were looking at our screen.
Oh, yeah. I lost it. I did not know that the story... Wait a minute. Where was I?
You can just start here again. So we get the
Also,
whole last part of that.
Also to be condemned is someone who speaks Lashon Hara about a colleague slyly, pretending to be innocently telling a story without knowing that it is harmful. When he is reproved, he excuses himself by saying, "I did not know that the story was harmful or that so-and-so was involved." So he's lying.
I had an ex who was a great person, but she used to do that. She used to pretend like she was an airhead, and she was absolutely not.
Oh.
We were working at this restaurant together once, and this guy, he was the general manager, and then all of a sudden we had a new general manager come in, and so he was just one of the lower level managers again. So my ex would go up to him and say, "Who's this guy? I heard that he's the general manager now." And she's talking to the ex general manager. And he said, "Yep, he's in charge of the store now." "But I thought you were the general manager." "I was, but now this guy's the general manager." "Oh, but you're still a manager, right?" "Yeah, I'm a front of the house floor manager." "But isn't the general manager over the floor manager?" "Yes, Tammy, he is." So is that like a demotion? She knew. I mean, I was the kitchen manager of this restaurant. She knew exactly what was happening with all levels of management. But she pretended like she was just an airhead, didn't understand, to be insulting this guy because she didn't like him. So doing these types of things, that's what it's talking about. But I think it's gonna give us a more literal example here. Um, number number 4, 24. Okay, 24. The tinge of lashon hara, which means it's not literally lashon hara, but it sort of has that sort of a shade. It's kind of on the outskirts of it. So even though the speech itself is not lashon hara, it is an extension of that sin because it leads to people saying or at least thinking negative things about a colleague. So that example that I just gave about my ex Tammy, she was confronting this manager in front of her coworkers. So now they're all thinking, he got demoted, and so therefore he's in trouble for something. So that's what it's talking about. Okay, the Hafethaim, he's the one I said he expanded on lashon hara. He states that even hinting at a person's unfavorable qualities or actions is considered as actual lashon hara and not merely the tinge of lashon hara. So Rambam saying it's kind of on the outskirts. Hafethaim himself is saying no, that is actually lashon hara. Remember, he raises the standard. Hafethaim raises the bar. Number 28 gives you the source in Baba Batra. Relates to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. This was the one that compiled the Mishnah. He was the head of the Sanhedrin. He spoke to his son admiringly about the way a book of Psalms had been copied. When his son informed him of the identity of the scribe, he told him, "Cease speaking lashon hara." So the scribe is the one copying. We didn't always have a printing press. You had to copy by hand. So when he was giving a compliment, when his son gave the compliment about the way it had been copied by the scribe, his son informed him of the identity of the scribe, saying, "This was the scribe. Asher Meza was the scribe. He was the one copying the scribe, and he did a great job." So he said, "Cease speaking lashon hara." So the question is, why would you say stop giving a compliment to this guy? Why is that considered lashon hara? So the Talmud explains the scribe's enemies would surely respond by criticizing the scribe, thus turning his praise into shame. So there's an actual literal example of this. If you go to Safaria and you look up the laws of Shechita, how to do kosher slaughter, you'll see the first 27 chapters there translated from Hebrew into English by Rabbi Asher Meza. It says that on Safaria. Asher is the one that translated this. So this example is saying, well, it was a scribe that did a great job copying the book of Psalms, but this is a literal example. If you're having a conversation with someone and you say, you want to know what the Shulchan Aruch says? Not the Mishnah Torah, because Mishnah Torah we have in English, but the Shulchan Aruch, what it says about how to do a kosher slaughter, you can go to Safaria and you can see it translated into English. So you can read for yourself how to do a kosher slaughter. If you don't like Mishnah Torah, you want to do what the Shulchan Aruch says, go to Safaria, and if you can't read Hebrew, you can read it in English. People will be happy to hear this. When you say it's translated by Rabbi Asher Meza, they're not going to want anything to do with it in some crowds. So that's what it's saying. Don't do anything that's going to lead other people to speak. Oh, you know what Asher said, and Asher this and that. So sometimes when you're repeating what he says, this was actually part of the 15-minute voice note that I left yesterday, that the phone wouldn't let me send, that I had to delete it. But, when you bring up some of the things that he says, check, verify, trust but verify. Make sure the Gemara says this, make sure Rambam actually said whatever. Because he is human, sometimes he makes mistakes. And you go to another rabbi and you say, hey, do you know what I found in the Gemara? Do you know what I read that Rambam's saying? They'll tell you, yeah, you're right. it does say that. When you say the exact same thing, you say, you know what Asher found in the Gemara? Instead of telling you, yes, you're right, that's true, they're going to look for a way to say, you can't listen to anything this guy says. So that's how you kind of want to, how you want to protect sometimes your sources. You don't want to, even through compliments, you don't want the person you're talking to be able to start speaking Lashon Hara as a result of something that you said. Okay, 32. This one, I think this is where we go to Tanakh. Okay, the commentaries note Rashi's comments, Numbers 12:1, which explain that Miriam's remark about Moses were considered as Lashon Hara, even though she personally had no intention of embarrassing him. So let's get our JPS Tanakh here, and let's see what that says. Numbers 12:1. When they were at Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. He married a Cushite woman. So this is where this story comes from, that Moses married a wife who was black. Cushites were black. It doesn't say anything there derogatory. It doesn't say, I'm just speaking that that's who he married. He married a Cushite woman. It doesn't say anything negative. It doesn't say that she's trying to embarrass him or she's trying to ruin his name. She's trying to say something negative. It doesn't say that. So Rashi's commentary says that it's considered Lashon Hara even though she had no intention of embarrassing him. Why is that considered Lashon Hara? Well, if you look at the Peshat, just what the Torah says itself, we'll continue reading. When they were in Hazeroth, Miriam and Aaron spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman he had married. He married a Cushite woman. They said, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken to us as well? The Lord heard it. God heard what she said. Even if they're, in a room in private, the community didn't hear it. The internet, the world didn't. God heard it. Now Moses was a very humble man, more so than any other man on earth. Suddenly the Lord called to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tent of meeting. So the three of them went out. The Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stopped at the entrance of the tent and called out Aaron and Miriam. The two of them came forward, and he said, hear these my words. When a prophet of the Lord arises among you, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is trusted throughout my household. With him I speak mouth to mouth, plainly, not in riddles. And he holds the likeness of the Lord. Now then, did you not shrink from speaking against my servant Moses? Still incensed with them, the Lord departed. As the cloud withdrew from the tent, there was Miriam stricken with snow-white scales. When Aaron turned towards Miriam, he saw that she was stricken with scales, and he said to Moses, O my Lord, on account not to us the sin which we committed in our folly. Let her not be as one dead who emerges from his mother's womb with half of his flesh eaten away. So Moses cried out to the Lord, saying, God, pray heal her. So this is a tsarat. It's like it's usually translated as leprosy. It's like a skin disease. And Moses is saying, heal her from this punishment that you gave her. You got very angry that she was speaking. I'm not even angry. I want you to forgive her for what she said. Please heal her. But the Lord said to Moses, if her father spat in her face, would she not bear her shame for 7 days? Let her be shut out of camp for 7 days, and then let her be readmitted. So Miriam was shut out of camp 7 days. The people did not march on until Miriam was readmitted. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and encamped in the wilderness of Paran. So if the Torah was a movie, Miriam Moses' sister would be one of the main characters, and she herself was punished for her speech, which, according to Rashi, was not, intended to cause harm. She wasn't speaking negatively, but she was punished for it. So commentary is what it is. There's people that disagree with Rashi, but however, as we see, this is not just from the Talmud, not rabbinical. There's cases in Torah where speech has consequences. Okay, number 5. I think starts off talking about the case we just read in Torah about Miriam.
There is no difference whether one speaks Lashon Hara about a person in his presence or behind his back. The statements of people who relate matters which, when passed from one person to another, will cause harm to a man's person or to his property, or will even merely annoy him or frighten him, are considered as Lashon Hara. If such statements were made in the presence of 3 people, one may assume that the matter has already become public knowledge. Thus, if one of the 3 relates the matter a second time, it is not considered Lashon Hara, provided his intention was not to spread the matter further and publicize it.
Okay, so you've heard of the Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is the one on
Yes.
Lag Baomer. He was out in the cave teaching students Torah. This is why the bonfires, the bow and arrow, they would say, oh, we're not going to learn Torah because this wasn't allowed. We're going hunting. We're just going to practice archery. So the commentaries, they cite Shabbat 33b, which relates that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the Rashbi, made unfavorable statements about Roman authorities. You should be allowed to talk about Romans. These are our oppressors. They've invaded us, right? But Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim passed on the statements, one who was listening to the negative speech that was true, one who was listening to the Lashon Hara. He passed on these statements without meaning to cause Rabbi Shimon any harm to others. The report spread and ultimately became known to the Roman authorities, forcing Rabbi Shimon to hide for 13 years. Back to the question, which I'm not saying this is the actual answer, but why is it worse for someone who listens than one who spreads it? If you look at the story of Noah, who was passed out in his tent after getting drunk, and the son that was cursed was the one who not the one who somehow violated Noah, or some people say Noah's wife. It's a debate. What did it actually mean? But one answer there is that the one who saw, hey, look at our dad, he's passed out. That's the one who spread the report to the other one who did the crime. So that's kind of somehow listening to it is responsible for getting involved and spreading it, and someone else, because of the spread, doing something that results in harm. So that could be one answer why participating and listening to it is such a big crime. Could be, not saying it is. What I highlighted here, if such statements were made in the presence of 3 people, one may assume that matter has already become public knowledge, according to Rambam. Remember, Hafethaim says 10 people is public knowledge. Thus, if one of these 3 relate the matter a second time, it's not considered Lashon Hara because it's considered public knowledge, provided his intention was not to spread the matter further and publicize it. So if somebody's telling you that it's in secret, don't consider, oh, well, 3 people know about it already. It's public knowledge. If it's supposed to be secret, then you should honor the secrecy, the off the record conversation that you're having. In which case it would be forbidden. The Chafetz Chaim explains that even in this instance, there is no outright license regarding the matter and advises from refraining from such speech if it's possible. So if it's considered public knowledge because three people know about it, it doesn't necessarily mean, oh, it's free reign to talk about it. If they're confiding in you, um, don't necessarily consider it as public knowledge. If they're asking you to keep it secret. Okay. So now we're on number 6. It's a short one. Anybody who doesn't like to read.
Sharon, you're muted.
Thank you. All the above are people who speak Lashon Hara, in whose neighborhood one is forbidden to dwell. How much more so is it forbidden to sit together with them and hear their conversation? The judgment against our ancestors in the desert was only sealed because of Lashon Hara.
Good.
Interesting.
39. I have like 4 commentaries here highlighted. Okay, so here's your source in the Talmud. Arachin, I think is how you pronounce that. Quotes God as saying, I cannot dwell in the world together with people who speak Lashon Hara. It's not proper for a Jew to dwell where God's presence cannot be found. See also Midrash Tanchuma, Korach, section 4, which notes that many members of the tribe of Reuben were drawn into Korach's mutiny because they were his neighbors. It said, you know, if you were in that group that left Egypt, you saw the miracles, you're left, you're leaving. You know, it said that only 20% of the Hebrews left, meaning the other 80% stayed behind. So you're already the group that sees what's going on here. You didn't fall for the Egyptian propaganda that says, no, stay here, be slaves. It's better this way. You were part of the minority that sees what's going on. You left. You're there with Moses. Why would you follow Korach? So it's taught that when Korach spoke, he was like, not to make a comparison here, but he was like Donald Trump. He was like Adolf Hitler, that when he spoke, the crowds were just like, whoa, he's the authority. He spoke with such a command that they followed him because he was such a leader, and that's how he led the rebellion. He had that type of personality. So just like we can't be, you know, the expression, I wouldn't be caught dead. I think this came from like mobsters. I wouldn't be caught dead in a place like that. You know, mobsters are shooting each other. So you go into this strip club or something, and there's the guy, a married man. He's in a strip club. There's his dead body. I wouldn't be caught dead. So if we can't go to these types of places, for sure, you know, Hashem's not going to be found there. So that's what this is saying. If God can't, his presence can't be found there, it's not appropriate for us to be found there. People that are sitting around speaking Lashon Hara, we shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be around them. It's not appropriate. Number 40. Another story from the Talmud where Rabbi Eliezer says, do not sit among a company of people who speak unfavorably of their fellow men. I would say this includes TikTok channels. You know, there's some rabbis out there, their whole channel or YouTube is nothing but speaking about other rabbis that are more popular, that have a bigger following. You know, entire playlists dedicated to attacking other Torah scholars because they disagree with something that they said. Is it appropriate to be in that community? What are you doing there? Why be there and let those things rub off on you? So he says, don't sit among a company of people who speak unfavorably of their fellow men. These words ascend to the heavens and are written in a book, and all those are assembled there are recorded as an evil company of slanderers. Do you want to justify what you were doing there in this company? Oh, this. Okay, compelling them to wander in the desert for 40 years. So we left Egypt. We had to wander in the desert for 40 years. Why was that? That judgment was sealed because of Lashon Hara. because of the spies' unfavorable report to the land of Israel. Remember, only Joshua and Caleb gave the good report. Joshua and Caleb said, hey, God's telling us we're going into that land. It doesn't matter if the people are giants. It doesn't matter what obstacles there's going to be. If God said he's taking us out and putting us in that land, God is going to make sure that we are successful. The other 10 people, the other 10 spies, oh, it's a bad land. It's a land that devours its inhabitants. You know, that was a negative report. That was negative speech. And it was because of that that we had to be in the desert for 40 years. Everyone from that generation had to die. So, see, that's all it says here. But the physical copy gives a better explanation. 42. Because of the spies' unfavorable report of the land of Israel and the Jewish people's acceptance of it, the Talmud states that since this punishment was decreed for speaking lashon hara about mere trees and stone, one must imagine how severe the punishment is for speaking lashon hara about another person. We just saw what happened to Moses' assistant. Our sages explain that disease, tsarat, which resembles leprosy, came as a punishment for the sins of gossip and lashon hara. Therefore, at the conclusion of Hilchot De'ot, Tzaraat, the Rambam also elaborates on the evils of these sins and possible repercussions of such behaviors. Okay, big crime there. Okay. Number 7.
Person who takes revenge against a colleague transgresses a scriptural prohibition, as Leviticus 19:18 states, do not take revenge, even though one is not liable for lashes for taking revenge. It is a very bad trait. Instead, a person should train himself to rise above his feelings about all worldly things, for men of understanding consider all these things as vanity and emptiness, which are not worth seeking revenge for. What is meant by taking revenge? A person's colleague asks him, lend me your hatchet. He responds, I refuse to lend it to you. On the following day, the person who refused needs to borrow a hatchet from his colleague. He asks him, lend me your hatchet. The latter responds, just as you did not lend it to me, I will not lend it to you. This is considered as taking revenge. Instead, when he comes to ask him for it, he should give it to him with a full heart, without repaying him for what he did. The same applies in other similar instances. Thus, King David proclaimed regarding his exemplary qualities in Psalm 7:5, have I repaid those who have done evil to me? Can you move up, Rabbi?
Oh, sorry.
Have I repaid those who have done evil to me? Behold, I have rescued those who hated me without cause.
Okay, remember last week we were talking about what does it mean to hold a grudge? And I gave the example that I use the same example every time. If somebody wants to borrow, if you go to your neighbor and ask to borrow an expensive lawnmower, and they say, no, I don't want you to borrow my lawnmower. I don't want something to happen to it. Maybe it would have broke anyway, and now I have to wonder, did you break it? Or would it have broken if I used it? So I don't want you to touch my lawnmower. And then the next day they come over and say, hey, you got a weed eater. It's very inexpensive, easily replaceable. Can I borrow your weed eater? It's not enough. I mean, revenge, say, no, I remember what you told me yesterday about the lawnmower. I'm telling you the same thing. I don't want you to take my weed eater. So if you say, okay, I remember what you told me yesterday, but that's all right. Go ahead. Take my weed eater. And you're very vindictive about doing it. It's not enough. You have to do it with a full heart. You have to be happy to be helping your neighbor. So, Sefer HaMitzvot. That's the book of the commandments, the Torah commandments, according to Rambam. That's the 613. He lists this here as negative commandment 304. So I looked that up in my Sefer HaMitzvot. Okay, and I don't see myself on the screen, so I don't know if you can see what I'm showing. Sefer HaMitzvot. When I get to this, look at what I see on the page surrounding. Okay, negative 304th negative commandment. He has prohibited us from taking revenge of one another. Rambam will now explain revenge. For example, if another has acted offensively to us, we would not refrain from searching for him until we paid him back for his evil deed or pained him as he has pained us. God warned against this in the Torah. Do not take revenge. Rambam cites the Sifra. Okay, the Sifra is Midrash Halacha. It's Tanaic era literature, same generation as the Mishnah. So these are the people that had smicha going all the way back to Moses. And it's Midrashim that they use to derive halacha from Midrashim, stories surrounding things in the Torah. So concerning this commandment, the Sifra states, how far is the power of revenge? If one said to another, lend me your Scythe. I don't know what that is. Seed, some type of sickle or something, how they used to cut grass. And he was refused. And the next day the other said to him, lend me your spade. If he replied, I will not lend it to you, just as you did not lend me the sky yesterday, of this it is written, do not take revenge. This example can serve as a paradigm for all other cases of revenge. On the next page that I'm looking at is the 303rd negative commandment. He has prohibited us from shaming another. You've heard the expression from somewhere in the Talmud. One who humiliates another in public or shames them is. Siri thinks I'm talking to it. My phone is activating. Humiliating one in public is akin to murder. It's akin to killing someone in public. Something you could be given the death penalty for. If you go out and murder somebody, you can be executed for that. It's saying shaming another one in public is on the same level. Something you should be given the death penalty for. Not that you would, because it requires a deed, speech. Humiliating someone doesn't even get lashes. So for sure you don't get the death penalty for humiliating somebody. But they're saying, even though we don't give you the actual punishment, it's on the same level. This transgression is commonly called whitening the face of one's neighbor in public. The warning in this regard is what God said in the Torah. Reprove your neighbor, and do not bear sin because of him. Rambam will now explain how we learn this prohibition from the above verse. Concerning this verse regarding reproving one's fellow, the Sifra states, from where in Scripture is it derived that if he reproved him even 4 or 5 times to no avail, he should do so again? From the repeated term, reprove. However, I might think one should continue to reprove, even if the other's face turns colors from the shame because of one's reproof. To avoid this understanding is therefore clearly written, and do not bear sin because of shaming him. Although the sages learn from the verse, do not bear sin because of him, that one may not shame his fellow, this is not the simple meaning of the verse. However, the plain meaning of the verse is a warning against harboring thoughts of others' transgressions in one's heart and remembering. Don't bear a sin because of him. The sin is you having the negative feelings. Even though you're not humiliating him in public, you still have those feelings inside of you. So I turn the page and I'm on the 305th negative commandment. That he has prohibited us from bearing a grudge, prohibiting even without taking a vengeance, by merely harboring in our hearts the other's sin against us and bringing it up to him. This is what the exalted God said in the Torah, do not bear a grudge. Rambam now explains the term grudge. Concerning this commandment, the Sifra states, how far is the power of a grudge? If one says, lend me your sky, however you pronounce that word, and he was refused, the next day the other said to him, lend me your spade. If he replied, Take it. I'm not like you, who did not lend me your scythe yesterday. Of this type of grudge it is written, do not bear a grudge. So you can't even have these negative feelings inside of you, even if you don't speak them verbally. You're bearing a sin because of this other person, because of the feelings that you hold. And even if with the grudge, you do the deed, you give him the item that he wants to borrow, it's not enough to do that, to say, because I'm not like you. You have to do it with a full heart, which is, where did I highlight that? Oh, number 7. It's in here, right here. You should give it to him with a full heart. It's not enough to just be better than the other guy. Don't sink to his level, do it. But you're doing it begrudgingly. You have to do it with a full heart. You have to be happy to be helping your neighbor. Like tzedakah, it's not enough to just say, you know, it really hurts me to separate my me from my money, to watch my bank account go down because I'm donating to charity. The fact is, the charity's getting the money. They're getting the help that they're going to use the money for. It's not enough. It doesn't count. You have to give the tzedakah with a full heart. You have to be happy that your bank account is going down because you're helping other people. And that's what all matters. Okay. Um, 44. Let's see if we have the same number as I have in my book here. Even if one performs a deed, the prohibition is not on the deed, but rather on having the feelings which motivated such an act. Sometimes you gotta let it go. Can't hold a grudge, not just by borrowing and that, but just by having these negative feelings about people. Like they do about Rabbi Asher, for example. They can't just say, you know what, there's things that I don't like. I started talking off, I think, on the first halakha here about some other rabbis that I disagree with. They can't just say, I disagree with him. I don't like the guy, but I acknowledge he's doing good. Asher is bringing people to Torah. He's taking people that have nowhere to go and he's giving them somewhere to go, which might not be the ideal situation, but it's better than where these people are, where they could be in a bad place, learning very negative things. They can't just let it go and see the good in people. Okay, number 47, I actually want to go to the next chapter. See where it says, however, Hilchot Talmud Torah 7:13, which obligates a Torah sage to seek revenge for any public affront to his honor. I want to deal with this because this sounds dangerous. What do you mean we're obligated to seek revenge? And I think people could come away, maybe not you guys, but somebody watching the video later, maybe they could come away with the impression that, okay, sometimes we're obligated to seek revenge. What does that mean? So let's go there. Hilchot Talmud Torah chapter 7. Wait a minute. Okay, my physical copy has it as halakha 13. They have it here as halakha 12. So there's some difference in the enumeration, but it's the same halakha. Whenever a ban of ostracism is imposed in a person's presence, it should only be lifted in his presence. If it was issued outside his presence, It may be lifted in his presence or outside his presence. There is no fixed amount of time between the issuance of a ban and its release. Instead, one may issue a ban and lift it immediately if the person is placed under a ban improves his behavior. However, if the court sees fit for this individual to remain under a ban for a number of years, they may extend the ban according to his wickedness. So we're talking about Torah scholars here, like people that sat on the Sanhedrin when there was an actual court. This is Bava Metzia 59b. When they excommunicated Rabbi Eliezer, they said, we're distancing ourselves from you, when really what they meant is we're distancing you from us. You're not welcome back. You're no longer one of us. We don't like your rebelliousness. So that's what it's talking about. However, it's still applicable today. If you're going to ostracize a Torah scholar, you don't like this other rabbi, so you're going to put him on a ban list. You're not going to allow your students to learn from this other rabbi. Similarly, it sees fit if the court is entitled to excommunicate a person at the outset or to excommunicate anyone who eats, drinks, or stands within 4 cubits of a person who has been ostracized. The power is granted to cause the banned person hardship and thus create a fence around the Torah so that it will not be violated by its sinners. Even though a Torah scholar may place a person under a ban of ostracism to preserve his honor, it is not praiseworthy for a scholar to accustom himself to this practice. Instead, he should turn his ears from the words of the common people and not to pay attention to them. As Solomon said in his wisdom, also do not pay heed to all the words that are spoken. This was the practice of the pious in early generations. They would hear their shame and not answer. Furthermore, they would pardon and forgive the person who insulted them. So right there it says they would pardon and forgive the person who insulted them. This is the praiseworthy practice. So how do we get to a Torah scholar is obligated to seek revenge? We see the general practice was to forgive people who spoke against them, but we're going to see when it comes to Torah, it's an elevated crime. So the great sages would take pride in their pleasant deeds, relating that they never issued a ban of ostracism or excommunication to protect their honor. This is the path of the sages, which is worthy of being followed. So Asher never says, hey, don't learn from this rabbi because that rabbi insulted me. Even if Asher and this other rabbi have a problem, he's not telling you not to learn Torah from that rabbi. He's not banning the teachings of that rabbi because he was personally insulted by something that rabbi did to him. So he's not excommunicating people to protect his own honor. So this is where the obligation of a Torah scholar to take revenge is to protect the honor of the Torah, not the individual. So when does the above apply? I'm reading out of my physical copy here. So I'm scrolling here for you guys on the screen. When the person spurned or embarrassed the scholar in private. So if less than 10 Jews witnessed or were informed about the incident, okay, so the commentary here is using the number 10 Jews. That's the Chafetz Chaim's number. Rambam would say 3 is what's required for it to be considered public. But either way, when the person spurned or embarrassed the scholar in private, however, if one spurns or embarrasses a scholar in public, it is forbidden for the scholar to forgo his honor. So it's forbidden to forgo his honor. That's where we're getting that there's some sort of an obligation to take revenge. So although Kiddushin 32b states that a Torah scholar is entitled to forgo his honor, this only refers to instances where he releases the person from the obligation to show him tokens of respect. However, he does not have the right to forgive a public display of respect towards him. Remember, the Shulchan Aruch says, even if there's another rabbi, you don't like him. He's not your rabbi. You disagree with the things that he's saying. You're still obligated, according to the Shulchan Aruch, to stand up when he enters a room. Because even though you don't like him, you disagree with him, you acknowledge he is a Torah scholar. And therefore, he deserves respect. Now, of course, that Torah scholar can forego his honor. He can say, don't stand up, don't get up. You don't have to get up on my account. But this is saying um, you do not have the right to forgive a public display of disrespect towards him because he's dishonoring the Torah. Indeed, if he does so, he is punished because of the disrespect of the Torah and not his personal honor. So, if you're a rabbi and someone doesn't want to show you respect, you could say, listen, I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you, just like the greatest rabbi in the world, just like the ignoramus who doesn't know the first word of Torah. We're all humans. You want to disrespect me? Fine, no problem. You don't owe me an apology. You don't. I don't expect you to show me any honor. I'm a human. I have the right to do that. I do not have the right to say it's okay that you're disrespecting a Torah scholar. Even if you don't like the guy, even if the guy has some faults, even if he's committed some crimes that you're not happy with, the fact is the guy is a Torah scholar. He's using this knowledge to do good things, to honor the Torah, even if he falls short in some areas. When the Torah is involved, you can't forgive somebody disrespecting that. So instead, he should seek vengeance and carry enmity over the matter like a snake. What does that mean? Any scholar who does not seek vengeance and carry enmity like a snake is not a genuine scholar. The comparison to a snake is significant. This comes from Yoma in the Talmud, based on Ecclesiastes. The Talmud explains that a snake does not bite for his own benefit, but merely as a messenger of God. When a Torah scholar seeks revenge, he must have a similar intent. He should have no thoughts of his personal honor or pride. You want to insult me? Fine, insult me, whatever. Rather, his intent should be the defense of the Torah honor. You don't like Asher, you don't like some of the groups that he's joined, you don't like the way he dresses, whatever. Asher can say, fine, you don't like me, don't like me. But how do you look as a rabbi with a long beard and a black hat going out there publicly trying to insult other rabbis? Not a good look. You're making the Torah look bad. So that's where it comes from. A Torah scholar is obligated to seek revenge, not personally. Not that he should go slash your tires, not that he should start insulting you, making fun of whatever, but he should be seeking revenge in a justified way to honor the Torah itself until the offender requests to be pardoned. Then, once the person that you're getting revenge says, you're right, I want to be pardoned, I still don't like you, but my behavior was not appropriate because as a rabbi, it makes me look bad to insult people who are showing respect for the Torah. Once he does that, if he does that, then he should forgive him. Hilchot Teshuvah relates, it's forbidden for a person to be cruel and refuse to be appeased. When a person who wronged him asks for forgiveness, he should forgive him with a complete heart and a willing spirit. Even if he distressed and wronged him very much, he should not seek revenge or bear a grudge. We've all been in situations with our spouse or whatever. We don't like the thing they said to us, and we're mad. We're going to give them the silent treatment. They come back and they say, I'm sorry. It's not appropriate to say, okay, you said you're sorry, but I'm still mad. I still don't want to talk to you for the rest of the day. It's not right. Once a person has apologized, they've said what they were doing is wrong, you have to forgive them with a full heart. The argument is over. You have to let it go. So that's what it means. A Torah scholar is obligated to seek revenge. It's only to get a person who's misbehaving and making the Torah look bad change their behavior. It's not personal. It can't be because, I don't like what you said about me. It has to be because you're making the Torah look bad. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now we have to go back to where we left off, which was Hilchot De'ot, chapter 7. And I think that was halakha 7 there we were on. One more commentary. There's an actual example. I have rescued those who hated me without harm. What does this mean? King David sparing of King Saul who pursued him. Though David was given 2 opportunities to kill Saul, he did not take revenge and prevented his men from harming the king. Even though maybe King David should not have liked King Saul, he said, he is the king. Hashem gave us a mechanism to have a king. That's the person who is fulfilling that role right now. You have to at least honor that. If Saul is the king, that's worthy of respect. Which reminds me of a Rosh Hashanah message. We say Hashem is Melech HaOlam. He's the king of the universe. A king could be like King Saul, someone who rules over you. You don't like him? You didn't vote for him, whether he's your prime minister, he's your president, you prefer someone else. The fact is, this person is in charge. They have a level of authority over us. This is not what we mean when we say Melech, king, when we're talking about Hashem. It's not just that, okay, well, he's the creator of the universe. I didn't vote for it. If I could do it differently, I'd select something else. But we have to be, underneath his rule, because that's the way the system works. That's not what we're saying on Rosh Hashanah. We're not acknowledging him as the king that rules over us, that we don't have another alternative reality that we can go live in instead. We are saying, I choose you to be our king. I choose you to be the one that rules over me, and I'm submitting myself to your authority. So, because I'm voluntarily approving of this relationship, may it be your will this year that my fate is sealed. But then you have 10 days to Yom Kippur. So I thought that was a really good message to say, it's not just that you're in charge of me this year and my fate is going to be whatever you want it to be. I'm saying I approve of the fact that you are okay with what my fate's going to be. And I'm choosing this outcome, whichever outcome that you decide. So I thought that's a positive way to look at Rosh Hashanah this year. Okay, number 8, last one.
Similarly, anyone who holds a grudge against another Jew violates a scriptural prohibition, as Leviticus 19:18 states, do not bear a grudge against the children of your people. What is meant by bearing a grudge? Reuben asked Shimon, rent this house to me or lend this ox to me, and Shimon was not willing to do so. A few days later, Shimon came to borrow or rent something from him. Reuben told him, here it is, I am lending it to you. I am not like you, nor am I paying you back for what you did. A person who acts in this manner violates the prohibition against bearing a grudge. Instead of doing so, he should wipe the matter from his heart and never bring it to mind. As long as he brings the matter to mind and remembers it, there is the possibility that he will seek revenge. Therefore, the Torah condemned holding a grudge, requiring one to wipe the wrong from his heart entirely without remembering it at all. This is a proper quality which permits a stable environment, trade, and commerce to be established among people.
Okay. 53. Wipe the matter from your mind. We've discussed this a lot already, but here the Rambam gives us an ideal example of ethical development. Might not be easy to forgive people who have wronged you, might take work, but not only does the person control the expression of an undesirable emotion, he wipes the negative feelings entirely from his heart. Might not be easy, it might take practice, but that's the ideal situation. So here, his statement shed light on a question discussed by the rabbis. Does each mitzvah have a self-contained purpose, or are there mitzvot which exist only as a safeguard to prevent the transgression of more serious prohibitions? The Rambam's statements here clearly indicate that he accepts the latter. The latter being that there are mitzvot which exist only as a safeguard to prevent the transgression of more serious prohibitions. It's just as binding, just as obligatory. You have to follow it. But even if it's not a physical deed that we can measure, okay, did you separate this from challah? Did you put on tefillin? You know, these are things that we can quantify, but it's still just as obligatory. And that makes sense to Rambam and to me. You know, some people take the mystical position. You can't understand what's the purpose of a mitzvot because it's given, you know, by Hashem. We can't understand the way he works. So it has to be some sort of mystery. He rejects that. He says he gave us these mitzvot for a reason. Well, what's the point if it's some sort of a code that we can't decipher? So he attributes a meaning to each one of these. Human nature being what it is, it's natural that people will say or do things that will upset each other. If everyone were to take revenge and hold grudges, we would soon be faced with a continuous seesaw of negative feeling that would prevent the creation of a stable social framework. The Rambam begins Hilchot De'ot with directives for the development of one's own personality and concludes with the guidelines regarding relations with others. The two are interdependent. The only way a person is able to develop viable, meaningful relationships with others is when he works on developing his own character. Conversely, a person cannot concentrate solely on self-development and ignore his ties with others. It is a fusion of both self-development and social interaction that constitutes the middle path, the path of God, the heritage of which Abraham transmitted to his descendants throughout the generations. So I thought that was a very nice way to summarize these 7 chapters. If you can work on yourself as an individual, then you can contribute to the society on a macro, and that's what will lead to a good society. So this concludes Hilchot De'ot. Blessed be the merciful one who grants assistance. You know, for a long time now, I don't know, however many years I've been doing this, we've talked a lot about halakha. This is what's allowed, this is what's not. This is what you do, this is what's not. This is what's actual halakha, not just the minhag. It's optional. You can do the minhag if you want. But halakhically, this is what's required. Do what's required. Consider what's optional. Embrace everything that's optional if you want. But don't tell somebody else they're not doing what they're supposed to do if they're in compliance with what's halakhically required. Just because they choose to reject a minhag does not mean they're in violation of some halakha. So we spent a long time dealing with nothing but halakha. So that's why I got the idea to go over Hilchot De'ot, because it's not strict halakha. It's something that helps our behavior, character traits, personal development. Me, myself, I have enjoyed these last 7 weeks. I benefited a lot from going over this, looking at these examples and saying, how can I improve myself, my relations with others? Just looking at examples of interactions that I have with other people and saying, should I let this go? I made a statement. My purpose is not to convince everyone who reads my statement to change the world. My purpose of making my statement is to just put it out there for those that it resonates with. If it doesn't convince these people, fine, whatever. I don't have to sever the relationship with them because we disagree. So I've got, you know, in arguments with other people, and then I read this stuff and I realize, you know what? They apologized. I'm the one that's in the wrong if I don't let it go. So I've gotten a lot of benefit out of these last 7 chapters, but we've completed them. So I'll stop the recording and we can talk about in the group with those that are still here. Do you want to go back to what we've done every week for years and learn more halakha, or did you enjoy this type of message and want to continue with something else like, I don't know, Hilchot Teshuvah? We're probably going to take a break through the high holy days. If they line up on the days that I'm normally doing classes, we probably won't be here for those weeks. So I don't know, maybe we can tackle a couple of halakhic topics that are like 1 week per topic, then go back, but we'll discuss that. Anyway, this concludes Hilchot De'ot.